when is Jenna going out to the house?
She's gonna go out there this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
To organize the pantry.
Yeah. She's out shopping for the client's pantry right now, and then she'll go set it all up. So
it's a full day.
Yeah.
When is the client move from California?
They're moving next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they haven't seen it. I mean, he's seen.
The husband has seen some photos of it. Yeah, he's seen. He's really excited, but I don't know if he's sharing that with his wife because he wants it to be like a surprise, like a grand reveal.
I didn't know if he was able to still keep it like a surprise this whole time.
She saw the house. He couldn't keep it a surprise. Yeah. He was planning on they would move here from California and she'd walk into the house for the very first time.
Big reveal.
Yeah, like never seen the house, never seen any of it. And then, but no, he couldn't. And so she did see their new home and she's been there and she did get to see all the furniture that we selected, but she did not see photos of it installed yet. So yeah, it'll be super sweet next week whenever her and their family gets to see it for the first time.
It'll be awesome. Can you imagine if I did that to you?
No.
I said, hey, I bought a house in South Lake. We can't go see it. I'm just going to surprise you and I'm going to take over the entire design.
No. It's pretty wild. What do you think about it? It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It would be exciting, but also I would really be
You'd be very nervous.
I would not be able to
my choices.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome for them. That's great.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So, before we get to the topic that we wanted to talk about today, let's first talk about you. Obviously, I know you, but for our listeners who don't know much about you, you're our principal designer at Neighbor Interiors. How'd you get into design?
So design started for me, I think, back when I was in high school. My parents had let me design my bedroom.
Right.
And so I really just got into it went to Hobby Lobby and made my own draperies, and I found this Picasso print and I had it framed at Hobby Lobby and this super gaudy gold frame. I was very into gold back then, which actually ended up becoming really popular.
Right.
So so back in high school I got really into it, and then I went on to college and got my bachelor's in interior design at Sam Houston State, which is in Huntsville, Texas.
So what does an interior design degree look like? Because when I think of someone going to school for interior design, I remember the first time you told me that, my idea of what a degree looks like is probably very different. It's probably very technical, but my idea was very you learn how to pick fabrics or something. What does a degree in interior design look like?
So I think freshman year and sophomore year, it's a lot of color theory and understanding colors and how they work together and coordinate together. And then as you move on in your degree, you really get into the nitty gritty. The college the design program I was in was heavily focused on commercial interior design. So it was highly technical. We had to learn AutoCAD. I just remember spending hours and hours in the lab doing drawings, and they actually had us learn how to do hand drawing blueprints by hand and learning.
Old school way.
Yeah, the old school way. We had to learn that first before we got to use computers. And so just learning all the different line weights, the thickness of the lines. We had to learn how to write in the architectural style. And so it's funny because throughout college, my handwriting actually changed.
Really?
Yeah, because they trained us to write in this architectural style because we had to draw blueprints.
Right.
And so I adopted that. And I think all of us did in college. And I changed kind of the way I write. But then we got introduced to AutoCAD and, started designing that way. And we had different projects from residential to commercial that they would kind of like tell us a scope of work, and it was kind of a pretend project, but to us it was very real.
Right.
And we had to do design boards, and we had to do 3D models of homes, like using foam core and cutting out like the walls to scale. It was it was intense.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really awesome to kind of hear a little bit about that. I know you've shared that with me before, but it's interesting. And you still use a lot of those skills today. I still see you doing hand drawings and reviewing the architectural drawings that you do today. Feels like a lot of that stuff has prepared you to be able to work with the builders and architects that we get to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very important learning how to read plans and learning scale. And I love to draw, we learned how to do perspectives and like kind of by hand drawing. I don't do that as much now with all the computer like software and all that stuff, Photoshop and everything. But I think it's a skill that is really foundational.
Yeah. And then so after you got your degree in design, what happened next?
So after I got my degree, I went on to work at a furniture store, which was like in South Houston. You might remember that.
I do.
So I think you and I were like dating, I guess.
Yeah, I think we had first started dating then.
Yeah, and I sold you a piece of art that we still have to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was a Texas flag. It was a really cool Texas flag. I love history. And yeah, you were actually going to give me a deal on it, but I knew you got commission working there, so I wanted to pay full price.
Yeah.
And I did. And now you want that to get reframed.
I do.
You won't let me hang it up.
No, it's in our closet.
Yeah. But the flag itself is really, really
it is
cool. Maybe a more updated frame and mounting we can resurrect that.
Yeah. So I worked there. It was commission only, so that was tough straight out of college.
Right.
But I did learn a lot. And then I did work at MD Anderson for a little bit doing admin, and I did design on the weekends. The market was really tough.
So you kind of switched careers
I did.
for a little bit, but you still kept doing design on the side.
Yeah, I did, because that commission job was tough. And
Yeah.
so I did. I worked at MD Anderson. It was great. I loved it. Met some amazing people that I still talk to today. And then I went on and did commercial real estate for a bit, doing admin again, supporting the property management team, helping them do like a little bit of design stuff on their commercial properties, but not so much. But I think what really kind of moved my career into the path where it is now is I started working at Trendmaker Homes. So for a luxury builder in Houston, I supported their merchandising managers. So we designed all their models.
Okay.
And then from there, I went on to multifamily developments and started working for a big developer in Houston as his sole designer. And then you and I started having a family, and we started Neighbor just to give us more flexibility with our schedule. And we've been at it for 7 years?
7 years in July.
Yeah. So, it's been a progression of my career and just like our path.
Yep.
But it's been the past 7 years have been a wild ride.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So you had that residential and commercial experience. Sounds like from your degree and your education, your formal education, you had a lot of that commercial side of things, which served you well when you were in the commercial space. But then that period of time that you were working for the residential home builder, you were doing some pretty big houses in Houston.
They were huge.
And that really helped you with, developing your residential experience.
It did. And it was model merchandising. So it was a different beast of itself because we weren't working with, homeowners.
Right.
We were really designing for, to sell the home, I guess you could say. But I learned that residential piece. And then, so I think like designers either are all residential or all commercial, But for me, I have such a love for multifamily. And so I've never like wanted to let that go.
Right.
And so whenever I was working for that developer, it really just kind of ignited that love again. And when we started Neighbor, I was like, we have to do both.
Yeah. To say we've been able to continue both the residential and commercial multifamily side of the house. And that's been exciting because there's no shortage of uniqueness to the kind of work that we get to do, especially from a design perspective. So we started Neighbor 7 years ago. We were still in Houston. We were not here in Southlake. That was a change for us as well. So you want to talk about the first 4 years of Neighbor in Houston and what eventually led us here?
Yeah. So it's funny because like when I look back, I think year one of Neighbor was us just trying to figure out how to start a business. It was like, filing all the paperwork and trying to get a website. And your brother was a big part of all of our branding. I mean, he did all of our branding.
Right.
And he designed our first website.
Yeah.
Remember that website?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the photos on it were like pictures of our house, our own home.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really have a client yet.
Yeah. We had to have some kind of portfolio work.
Yeah.
Use our home as sort of a mini project.
Which I think a lot of designers do.
A lot of people do,
They
trying
do
to build up their portfolio.
Yeah. They always start with their house.
Or a family member's house.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was year one. And then year two, Hurricane, was it Harvey, hit Houston pretty bad and wiped out some multifamily properties, and Neighbor was hired to kind of resurrect those properties.
Right.
And so that was our first like big project.
Yeah.
Was that multifamily property off of I-10. And we did that one, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is happening.
We're
rolling. And then from there, we just started taking on more. We started doing more residential, doing houses, smaller projects for sure, like way smaller scale than what we're doing now.
Yeah. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Like, I think one of the ones I remember was a living room of like a townhome. And that was a big project to us at the time, and so it's fun to look back.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I think what got us here, your brother, I guess it's his wife, Jane, her parents lived in Arlington.
Yeah.
And they hired us to remodel their bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
And a couple other spaces in their house. And so we started working with them and their contractor. And that contractor and I just hit it off. And he started giving us more projects. And before I knew it, I was coming up to Dallas like once a week.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And that was just for us running a business and also growing a family. That was a very challenging time because we knew that we wanted to chase what we were doing, and it meant some sacrifices to do it. It was tough, but then...
And you were working full-time for another company.
I did. I had a career elsewhere. I was just helping in the evenings, on weekends, any spare time. It was mostly on you.
And Tegan was like, our daughter was like 18 months, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, little. And I remember it started off like, she would go till I would get help, like a nanny or whatever, like twice a week.
Right.
Remember? And then it was 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And it was 4 times. And then like, it was, okay, we're full time with Neighbor.
Right.
So,
yeah. We had to figure some things out there, but eventually I started being able to work remote where I was working. And because you were going back and forth all the time, I remember you came to me and said, we got to pick one or the other. And I want to pick being in North Texas in DFW. And we were able to do that. I got to work remote. We packed everything up, sold our house.
Crazy.
3 years ago and moved here. Yeah. And now we have an office in Southlake. We've had an office in Southlake for 3 years now. And you're doing a lot of different projects than we were even in Houston, the scope of work that you do now.
Yeah.
Just looking at even just behind you at the work that you've done recently, it's pretty impressive to look back and then also kind of see where we are now.
Yeah, that's been, I would say, like moving to the Dallas area has definitely, like, our business has grown so much since we've moved here. And I think, just the past 3 years, like, it's been really fun to see the progression of the projects that we do and just see the progression of the business and how we've grown, like where we started. Because I remember like having that little desk in our bedroom from Target, like in the corner, and that was my office.
Yeah.
And I remember I still have the picture. I took the picture of the desk like in our room on my phone because I was like, one day we're going to look back at this and we're going to be like, this is where it started.
Yeah.
And I never knew if we'd ever get to look back at that one day and be like, oh, wow, we've grown so much. But I just like hoped and prayed for it.
Yeah.
And so it is fun, to look back at that and be like, oh, yeah, like now we have an actual office.
Yeah. That's our version of like, the folks that have started businesses out of their garage.
Yeah.
That's our version of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Southlake has been an awesome place for us to be. This is a tremendous community. And we've been very blessed to be able to serve people here and be doing it for as long as we've had the opportunity to. I want to get into what we are going to talk about today, which is really, when should someone hire a designer in their project? And we know that from experience, a lot of people who are looking to hire a designer, they know they want to hire one because they're building a new construction home or they're starting a big renovation, and they know they want to bring a designer in, but oftentimes they're not necessarily talking to a designer first. Naturally, they're probably going to be talking to a builder and or an architect. So when is the ideal time for someone who's thinking about hiring a designer? When is the best time for them to start that conversation?
Yeah. The very best time is to start it early. So when you're looking at your architect, who you're going to partner with, really like as you're building your team, who's going to support you throughout the build process, the designer needs to be with that team in the very beginning. So as you're looking at a builder, an architect, or even your real estate agent, when you're looking to buy the land, like you should be thinking about who's going to be my team throughout this process, and then get those people in a room together with you so you all can be on the same page before you even start talking about the plans for the home.
Yeah. And that team, I mean, starting a new home or renovating it, that's such a personal and important part of someone's life. And the folks that you have working on that, you're going to want to make sure that you like them. You're going to be with them for a while.
Yeah.
And having them in the same room together to talk, it probably helps to kind of see for a client, hey, how's my builder and my designer get along?
Right.
Are they on the same page? Do they have the same level of experience? Because you may have an ideal, builder or designer in mind, but then when you collect that team together, you may realize, well, hey, I want to work with these people, but together maybe it's not the best fit.
Right.
And it's really kind of figuring out who your all-star roster is going to be. Why do you want to have that conversation early, besides just figuring out how they all work together? What are some other reasons to start early with a designer?
I think the designer is going to kind of know a lot more on the personal side. That's somewhat of our job, to get more personal. And so we can really dive in deeper into what the client wants or needs in terms of different functionalities throughout the home, and how the overall aesthetic is going to look. And then also just like, if it's a family of 6, okay, well, how big does that living room need to be for the furniture to fit 6 people?
Sure.
So things like that are really important. And then in addition to that, just budgets. We have been involved in a lot of projects where we are brought in after, budgets are set. And so they have their builder, or they have their architect and then their builder, and they're set with the budget. and then they come to us, the client, with all their wonderful ideas, and then the reality is the budget doesn't align with those ideas.
Yeah.
And so it's great to have us in on the beginning so we can talk about those budgets openly and talk about, okay, yes, you want to do this X, Y, and Z, then we need to make sure that's in the budget, and we're preparing for that instead of it being a surprise after you get going on the project.
Yeah. And even when those things happen later, we're still able to work with that team and figure out, okay, how do we make this work so you can still achieve what you're looking for,
right, and
keep it aligned with the budget. But obviously solving for that problem before it becomes a problem is better.
Yeah, because we can definitely, and I feel like this is the way remodels go as well as new construction. Like, you have to pivot, and you have to prioritize, like, what do you really want in the home, and where can we maybe save in other areas because they're not as important to you, or they're not the focal point of the home.
Sure.
So there's ways to pivot throughout a project and be creative problem solvers. But I think getting like your core team in a room together in the beginning, everyone's on the same page. We're all working to create the client's dreams come to life.
Yeah. I think you hit on something there that I think also speaks to why it's important to have a good team, because when you do have to pivot, you want your team all still firing on the same cylinders, working together, not pointing fingers or and then that just becomes a bad experience for the client.
Yeah.
So having that team that's all aligned, when those things do come up, then they still move as a unit to figure out what change needs to be made and how best to accomplish that.
Right, exactly.
You mentioned functionality. What are some of the functionalities or dream things that people want in their home that you see being one of the reasons why you're going to talk to a designer early?
I think one of the things that's like very popular right now, and I think it's here, I mean, it's always been popular, but for some reason now it's like resurrecting, are steam showers.
Oh yeah.
And just like the whole healthy living, steam showers and saunas, all of those different things that really help your health and your wellness. Those are popular, and we're putting those into pretty much all of our new homes. And that is something that is a big upgrade. Like, I don't know if people realize, like, at a very basic level steam shower system, those are like $5,000. And so if you didn't have a designer in on those meetings in the beginning and they didn't know that, that's a $5,000 change order.
Yeah.
Later down in the process, and that's not fun for anyone.
Right.
And it's not even just that; it's a lot of things that go into a steam shower. Like, you can only have up to a certain ceiling height for a steam shower to be really effective.
Yeah.
And so if you have a bathroom with, we've done one with a 12-foot ceiling, you're going to have to drop that ceiling over the shower to do steam.
Yep.
And so that's all like a construction thing that has to be worked out. And plus you have to have a spot to put the generator for the steam shower. It has to be within so many feet of the shower. There's a lot of logistics. And so it's not as easy as, oh, let's just put in a steam shower when we're, down the process.
Yeah.
Those things have to be pre-planned. And so that's kind of a functionality thing that I think needs to start early on versus like when you're going through a project and you want to change a tile. Like, that's different.
Yeah.
So,
and we get to work with some experienced builders, and they know sometimes to ask those questions.
Right.
But for clients where in their project that question hasn't come up, that's really where the designer, like you mentioned earlier, you kind of have that personal relationship with the client as well, particularly how they live.
Yeah.
And so those things, to ask those questions early on, to make sure something like that does get planned for.
Right.
And I know from plumbing, there's certain things that after you get to a certain point, you can't necessarily go back and just fix, like the rough for the plumbing. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like, just for an example, our home, Like if we wanted to change all of the plumbing fixtures in our shower to, let's just say, I don't know, Delta. I really like Delta and Brizo right now. So if we wanted to change all of that, we wouldn't be able to do that without going behind the walls and doing like a full gut of our bathroom, because our roughs are not universal. They're not Delta.
So it's not just the finish. It's not just as easy as changing out a finish, changing out a diverter or a faucet head. It's way more involved.
Yeah, you have to go in behind the wall to do that. And so it's just like planning all of those things up front. And then another thing is like kitchen. Like if the client loves to cook, say they're huge cookers and they are chefs and whatever, they like to cook. And the plans call for, you know, a 36-inch range and maybe one oven and whatever it is. But they're like, no, like we need a 60-inch, we need double ovens, we need a convection, we need this, we need that. Those are things that we can help determine up front. So whenever the cabinets are being drawn, we make sure that that kitchen space fits all the things that they want. Yeah.
And you mentioned appliances there. There's a lot of options with appliances now. You know, sous vide that's you know, put it into the cabinet, like a drawer that comes out, and it's
the microwave drawers too.
Microwave drawers, there's some really cool things that clients, those are the types of things that they have saved on their Pinterest board or whatever. That's one of the reasons why you want to talk to the designer early, because you can start establishing a more realistic budget and figure out, I have 50 things I want to do in this house. And as we start getting into the budget, we need to start prioritizing, and hopefully we can do all 50 of those things. But if it does come down to prioritizing it, being able to do that early on is really important.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, appliances are can be a huge line item on the budget in a kitchen, depending on, you know, what all the client likes to do in the kitchen.
Right.
And I think too, like when you like microwave drawers, some clients do not want their microwave, you know, in their kitchen. They want it in maybe the butler's kitchen, and so it's out of sight. And so like kind of just working out all those really like details before you, and then that's great because you get to work with the architect as they're drawing the plans, and they know these things too.
Yeah.
And then we're all just, you know, working together to make it a great experience.
Yeah. In addition to plumbing and kitchen, I know one of the other things that we see get cut first in budget cuts is our windows.
Yeah.
Why should, you know, clients rethink their windows and lighting?
Yeah, windows and lighting. I think, well, lighting is like one of the things that always, I think it's just kind of a generic thing that gets done on the plans. And then it's not something that's super thought through at times. Now it can be, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
But sometimes it's not. And so I'll talk about windows in a minute, but on lighting, architectural lighting is very important. And so architectural lighting is going to be like your recessed cans in the ceiling, any kind of LED lighting, you know, linear lighting you want to do throughout the home. And then of course there's your decorative lighting, which is like your chandeliers, your picture lights, and then, you know, sconces, all that stuff. But architectural lighting is huge. One thing you'll see in most homes, like in our house, we have like the big 6-inch recessed cans with the huge bulb, and it's not
Those are so lovely.
Yeah, it's like visually not very attractive. And so like an example would be, say your client has seen all of these like wood ceilings that are very popular and beautiful right now.
Yeah.
All over Instagram and all these gorgeous homes. And you see that and think about like a beautiful wood, like it's a white oak ceiling, whatever it is. And then you have a huge 6-inch can sprinkled all over it.
Right.
And so it's like those kind of details need to be considered early on in the process and factored in for a budget perspective, because it is going to cost more to do the 2-inch can or the 3-inch can. and then to like have the trim around the can either faux painted to match the wood or to have a mud in can where it's flush on the wood ceiling. All of those things are big upgrades. And so it's just like kind of a trickling effect. If like, yeah, you want that beautiful wood ceiling, well, let's talk about what that costs.
What would something like that cost?
For the wood ceiling, like we just priced one out recently. It was a vaulted ceiling, very expansive space. And just to do the wood ceiling, it was like $30,000.
And that doesn't even factor in the architectural lighting that you mentioned.
No.
It's just for the ceiling.
Just for the ceiling. Yeah. And then it doesn't factor in, if you decided to do just like a 2 or 3 inch can with the trim around it, having to go back in and like faux paint that trim to match the ceiling. Because you don't want to spend $30,000 on a ceiling and then have those big white cans all over it. It kind of defeats the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, considering those budget details for some of these really beautiful upgrades in a home need to be considered early on. And then back to your window question, I think windows are such a huge line item, and it's something that gets decided on very early on. And I think really it just comes down to like educating the client on the different options that are available and the different pricing. And then letting them decide what's best for them and their lifestyle. Yeah. And then what also like fits the level of the home.
Right.
If you have like a $2.5 million home, you're not going to put vinyl windows in it.
Right.
Those are going to be wood clad windows most likely.
Sure.
So it's just like, talking through those items with the builder, with the architect, with the client, so everyone can be on the same page, and then there's no surprises when those quotes start coming in.
Yeah. So really, there's any number of things why clients who are or folks who are looking to build or renovate are going to want to start these conversations with the designer early on and get them looped in with their builder and architect that they may already have picked out or may already be working with, so that they can plan to make these decisions. And I think that's honestly one of the things that we really value, is being able to help our clients know what questions to ask and be able to ask those at the right time, so that things don't get missed or it's too late for some things, and really help take the stress off of them having to know what questions to ask and when to ask it.
Yeah. We really like to just kind of let them lean on us to be their guide throughout the process. But then ultimately it is their home at the end of the day. They're going to live in that home for however many years, maybe even it's their forever home.
Sure.
And so it's really at the end of the day, their decision of what they want, how they want their home to look and feel, and what they want to spend on it. I think like our job is just to educate them and then let them make that choice.
Yep. Agreed. I think that was great start to our podcast here. For folks who are looking to start a new construction or renovation, or maybe they've already started that and they do want to bring in a designer as quickly as possible, and maybe they want to work with us, what is the best way for them to reach out to us and get that conversation started?
Yeah, so the best way to contact us is through our website. We have a contact form there. You fill out the form, and someone from our team will reach out and schedule a discovery call.
Okay. We'll put our website in the show notes.
Yeah.
But neighborinteriors.com, and you can find us on Instagram, see our work there at Neighbor Interiors.
Yep.
April, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Adam.
All right.